KSI's music career has become one of the easiest things on the internet to clown on. Ever since the release of the travesty known as The Thick of It, it's like every week people find an old song that KSI made and make a meme out of it. And to be fair, I get it. Over his discography of 3 full-length albums, 4 EPs, and 22 singles, a lot of them missed the mark in a major way. He's made corny songs, obnoxious songs, downright unlistenable songs at points. But there's a brief moment in this large career where it felt like KSI finally found his footing, found a sound that worked, and for a moment was one of the biggest YouTubers turned artists in the world. And unfortunately, a lot of his genuinely good material was being drowned out by the noise the internet is making by memeing on The Thick of It and songs like Little Boy. I'm not gonna go song by song in this video because honestly we really don't need to. The point of this video isn't to pretend that his discography is secretly amazing, that every song is a hidden gem, but it's to focus on that one specific era where he started to click and it actually felt like his music was making sense. KSI's music career had one genuinely promising arc. He stopped trying to be just a pure rapper and leaned more into kind of his melody work, with big pop hits and grunge aesthetic songs. He started building real momentum with his album All Over the Place and singles like Lose, Not Over Yet, Easy. But his public image became so oversaturated when he tried to combine so many things at once, like Prime, Lunchly, his boxing career, and in the midst of all this dropping The Thick of It. And all these combined made people stop judging his music and started just looking at it as a joke. To understand why All Over the Place and the songs after it did start to work, we do need to take a brief look at what came before it. After the release of New Age, his album made in collaboration with longtime friend Randolph, KSI got signed to RBC and BMG labels. And it's with this label where he released his first album, Dissimulation. And for all intents and purposes, this album just did not age well at all. Even at the time, as a big fan of KSI, I did find the production on this album to be very lacking, especially when you think of how much backing he had from such big name people in the industry. Even managing to land a collaboration with Offset, it still wasn't able to save this album and all the problems that it had in it. It wasn't until the release of his second album where things finally started to click, where his first album was mostly successful because of his pull as a creator, as well as being released at the peak of COVID, meaning a lot of people were at home being able to consume content. His second album felt like a different beast altogether. It came out before he launched his drink brand Prime in collaboration with Logan Paul, and also before his loss to Tommy Fury. Which, side note, I think that loss was the biggest mental reset KSI had ever hit, but that's a discussion for another time. When this album was coming out, a lot more people were willing to give KSI's music a try. At risk of sounding cringe, his aura was at an all-time high at this point. Leading up to the release of this album, he dropped a few humongous singles with names like Anne Marie, Youngblood, and Polo G. And these songs were already leagues above anything that came out in the Dissimulation era, from both a production standpoint and a performance standpoint. KSI was legitimately putting in the work to better his craft. He revealed that he had been taking singing lessons, and you could really see the improvement shine through on the performances of these songs.
When you're lonely and your heart aches, that's when you know what you're missing.
And this is already more work than a lot of other YouTubers were willing to put in their own musical projects. KSI stopped being only just a rapper and started to expand his horizons in this album and beyond. Though we did have straight up grimy rap songs with songs like Number 2 and Madness, the latter of which he somehow managed to land a feature with 21 Savage and Future. Things like that are where having a big record label behind you does come into play. But these songs do seem to fall flat in comparison to the other songs where he was experimenting with his sound. Personally speaking, when this album came out, I was absolutely addicted to the song No Time. It's just something about the way he performed the chorus on the song which made it so catchy, and the whole song just flows so well. And to this day, I genuinely think the song is pretty good. This album managed to garner a lot of attention, especially from the mainstream. He managed to hit #1 on the UK charts, which was a first for him, and he announced a 37-leg tour all across the UK and Europe, something that he couldn't do for the last album. And to cap off this album era, he managed to land a feature with Lil Wayne on the song Lose, which would be released as a single and added into the deluxe version of this album. And it was at this point where I and a lot of other people realized that KSI was really on a roll with his music. He found styles that he works good in, ditching styles that he doesn't work as good in, and was genuinely treating this like a proper career path rather than a one-off. I'm not saying this is like the second coming of Mozart, but what I'm trying to say is that people have genuinely forgotten that he released some decent songs just under all the rubble of this memeage and clownery. And I'm not calling this album or this era perfect. There are definitely some misses in this album as well. Stuff like Rent Free, You, Sleeping with the Enemy, to name a few, just were from all standpoints really not good songs. But the bar here isn't that KSI is some underrated musical genius, but rather he made some decent tracks that felt good to listen to. After the rollout of this album finished, KSI announced that he had been signed to Atlantic Records, one of the largest record labels in the world, managing acts like Ed Sheeran, Charlie XCX, Fred Again, and a lot more. All Over the Place was a major commercial success, multiple songs that have over 100 million streams, all led to him leveling up to signing with arguably the biggest record label in the world. And all this news is pointing towards KSI gearing up and getting ready to record his third studio album. By this point, it had been clear that KSI was a better singer rather than rapper. Like, for example, the song Holiday, where he didn't rap a single sentence, and it is by far one of his most famous songs to date. And songs like Not Over Yet, the first song he released after being signed to Atlantic, was also proof of this. This song managed to debut on #4 on the UK charts for singles, and he used this song as his walkout song for when he fought a collaborator on his previous album, Swarms. This fight was so last minute that the promotion photo has Swarms just high off his gourd in it. It's really funny. But therein lies the problem with his music career. When he finally found a style that worked for him, and he had real genuine momentum behind his music, what with him coming off a successful album and associated tour, but his focus was starting to shift to multiple different avenues. By this point, he had launched Prime, he was well within his boxing career, and was running a promotion. And due to all these factors, his music career fell off the wayside. His music started releasing at a much slower pace, with only 4 singles between 2022 and 2023. But even within these singles, managing to land a collaboration with Oliver Tree on the song Voices. And while musically these songs were on par with some of his best works, he just wasn't putting in the effort to promote these songs, leading people to kind of forget and just dismiss him as an artist altogether, slowly eroding any reputation and momentum he had built up to this point. And the frustrating thing is that the arc didn't even end with All Over the Place. If anything, the songs after it were just getting better and better, and him slowly narrowing down what works and what doesn't. Lose, Not Over Yet, Easy, and even later songs like Low all point towards the same idea. KSI works best when he's not just a rapper. He works best in polished, melodic, slightly rock and grunge leading music, where the hooks do most of the heavy lifting. But unfortunately, the better he got at finding his sound, the worse his public image was becoming. 2024 was the year where the conversation around KSI's music went from a YouTuber giving an honest try to this music thing to becoming just clown, all due to the release of The Thick of It. Everything that could have gone wrong with this song did go wrong. By the time this song came out, KSI wasn't just the influencer. He was the Prime guy, he was the boxing guy, he was the Lunchly person. And a lot of people completely flipped on how they viewed KSI. So when The Thick of It music video had a giant Prime bottle in it, all the people that were sick and tired of seeing Prime and Lunchly everywhere just blew up. And rightfully so. There is so much wrong with this song, and the hate honestly feels very justified. To go from his last single, Easy, which is honestly a really nice little flowy rap song with a very good hook and some really high quality production, but to go from that to this Kids Bop ass beat was one of the worst decisions that he could have made. And all these things combined managed to turn this just lowly single into one of the biggest memes on the internet for a good while.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody. No.
Ironically making this one of his biggest releases, especially in terms of YouTube views. And he was also beefing with Dan TDM on Twitter, so I don't know what he was doing at this time. But it was this absolute destruction of KSI's music career that completely overshadowed the second track in this release. A song named Low. This song was so far ahead of Thick of It in terms of musicality. It stuck with that rock and grunge aesthetic that worked well for KSI. The same one he used in songs like Patience and Lose. And it's frustrating that the song was sitting right there. Compared to Thick of It, which has almost 120 million streams, this one barely has 3 million streams. And this is the type of song where KSI shines the most. Not because he's some unbelievable vocalist, but because this darker pop sound gives his voice more texture. It lets the production carry some weight and keeps him away from this straight rap lane where the comparisons are really just not in his favor. But almost nobody knows that this song exists. But past this point, KSI's music career is in a bit of a free fall. He also had his third album completely leak online, leading him to announce that he would have to postpone and potentially change a lot of this album, if not the full album. And that's a real shame, because the songs he was releasing leading up to this potential third album was pointing to KSI hitting another peak in terms of his musicality. Specifically Dirty, which was such a departure from his normal music, but a really welcome one. This really put his improved singing skills on showcase, alongside a Billie Eilish sound-alike.
Heavy, I can feel the fear. Cupid's getting more than here.
In 2022 or 2023, if you were to ask people what they think of KSI as an artist, you would hear stuff like, yeah, he releases some decent music, or it's not for me, but I can see the appeal. But now, after this giant misstep, if you were to ask someone today the same question, you would hear nothing but hate. He essentially wiped out any sort of respect he had built up. And also because that one guy that laughs at his burger music or whatever. And as a fan who was following his music since New Age, that made me sad. Genuinely. I try to stay unbiased where I can, but seeing all this goodwill he had built throughout the years just be completely destroyed really doesn't sit right with me. He has always had his fair share of haters, because obviously his music is not for everyone. And there's a very good chance that underneath this video there's a few comments from people who didn't watch till the end, just wrote some hate for KSI and left. And that makes me just a bit sad. Not too much though, he did this to himself. How did he listen to Thick of It and think it was a good idea? People are not wrong to clown on him, and KSI gave people a lot of ammunition to clown on him.
I am the one that can see John Cena.
Thick of It deserved a lot of the hate that it got, and his diss tracks, which are being brought up now, especially Little Boy, are just bad songs and do also deserve the hate that they're getting. Well, not deserve the hate, nothing really deserves hate. So yes, some of his music is genuinely as bad as people are putting it, but the idea that his entire music career was just some giant joke is simply not true. There was improvement. There was effort. There was a style of music that genuinely started to work. And then the meme won. His best songs made him feel like an artist, and his worst songs made him feel like a brand. A glorified product placement. And when the internet has to choose between remembering when someone has made some decent stuff or remembering the meme, it will always choose the meme. Anyways, if you like this video, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe, dislike it if you disliked it. The outro music you'll be hearing is gonna be up on my Patreon for free, so be sure to check it out and download it from there. You're also able to support me over there if you would like, but thank you for watching. Get out of here.
You got me falling.